The stars looked different from the bridge of the battleship. Admiral Soren Valdez stared at them through the cracked view screen as warning alarms blared around him. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead, but he paid it no attention. His ship, once the pride of the Arcturian fleet, now limped through space with failing engines and breached hull sections. "Status report," Soren said, his voice steady despite everything. Commander Ellis wiped soot from her console before answering. "Not good, sir. Life support at 40%. Engines barely holding. We lost the Defender and the Guardian. The Sentinel. Sure, she gone. We're the only ship that made it out." Soren closed his eyes briefly. 4,000 crew members lost in an instant. The Void Dominion had struck again, and once more, the Alliance had failed to stop them. "Set course for the nearest friendly outpost," he ordered. "We need to warn them." Ellis looked up, her face grim. "Sir, there are no friendly outposts left in this sector. The Dominion has taken everything. For 30 years, the Void Dominion had spread across the galaxy like a disease. They weren't like other enemies the Alliance had faced. They didn't want resources or territory or power. They wanted to consume. Their black ships moved in perfect unison, directed by a single hive mind consciousness. They didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners. They simply absorbed everything in their path. "Then set course for the border regions," Soren said after a moment. "Maybe we can find help there." Far away on the third planet of a yellow star system, Captain Olivia Martinez stood on a beach and watched the sunset. Earth looked peaceful from here. The orange light reflected off the water, and seagulls flew overhead. It was hard to believe that just beyond their solar system, a war raged that threatened all sentient life. Her communicator buzzed. Olivia sighed and answered it. "Captain, we've detected an unauthorized ship entering our outer defense perimeter," said the voice of her first officer, Lieutenant Ben Clark. "Hostile?" she asked, immediately alert. "Unknown. It's badly damaged. Doesn't match any Earth vessel design." Olivia was already walking to her car. "I'm on my way to base. Maintain distance, but keep tracking it. If it makes any aggressive moves, you are authorized to disable it." The Constellation was ready for launch when Olivia arrived at the spaceport. Her crew worked efficiently, preparing the ship without needing detailed instructions. They had served together for 3 years and knew their jobs well. "The unknown vessel has dropped out of faster-than-light travel," Ben reported as Olivia took her captain's chair. "It's drifting now, sir. Looks like their engines failed." Olivia studied the image on the main screen. The ship was unlike anything she had seen before. Its hull was silver with blue markings, now scarred by what looked like weapons fire. Parts of it were simply missing, as if torn away by giant hands. "Life signs?" she asked. "Faint readings. Their life support is failing." Olivia made her decision quickly. "Move us alongside. Prepare medical teams and security. We're going to help them." The United Earth Council had strict rules about contact with alien species. Humanity had developed faster-than-light travel 50 years ago and established colonies on several nearby planets. They had encountered other intelligent species and knew about the Galactic Alliance. But Earth had chosen to remain independent, watching the galaxy from a distance rather than joining in its politics. But Olivia couldn't leave anyone to die, no matter what the rules said. The alien ship looked even worse up close. The Constellation's docking tube connected with difficulty to the damaged airlock. Olivia led the boarding party herself, accompanied by Medical Officer Dr. Frank Wilson and Security Chief Lisa Ramirez. The air inside the alien ship was thin and cold. Emergency lights cast red shadows across twisted metal. Bodies lay in the corridors, members of species Olivia had never seen before. "Some of these people are still alive," Frank said, kneeling beside a fallen crew member with blue skin and 4 arms. "But they're in bad shape." They found Admiral Soren Valdez on the bridge, still in his command chair. He looked almost human, except for the silver patterns on his skin and his eyes, which had no whites, just large purple irises. He was conscious but weak. "You're human?" he asked when he saw Olivia. "Yes. I'm Captain Olivia Martinez of the Earth Defense Fleet. We're here to help you." Soren tried to sit up straighter. The Void Dominion. They're coming. You must warn your people. The Void Dominion? What is that? The end of everything, Soren said, his voice fading. Unless someone can stop them. Over the next few days, as the survivors recovered in the Constellation's medical bay, Olivia learned the full story. The Galactic Alliance had been fighting the Void Dominion for decades and losing badly. The Dominion consumed everything in its path, adding the knowledge and abilities of conquered species to its hive mind. We've lost almost 70% of Alliance territory, Commander Ellis explained, showing Olivia a star map. Hundreds of worlds, billions of people, and now they're heading this way. Ellis nodded grimly. We estimate they'll reach your solar system within 18 months, unless something changes. Olivia knew she should take this information to the Earth Council immediately, but she also knew what they would say. Earth had stayed out of galactic affairs for good reason. They weren't ready for a war on this scale. But as she looked at the faces of the survivors, people who had lost their homes, their families, their entire worlds, she knew that staying neutral was no longer an option. The Void Dominion wouldn't respect Earth's independence. They would consume humanity just like they had consumed so many others. That night, Olivia made a call to an old friend, Director Gregory Winters of Earth Defense Intelligence. Greg, I need a favor, she said, and it can't go through official channels. That doesn't sound good, Liv, Greg replied. What have you gotten yourself into? Something big. I have refugees from the Galactic Alliance on my ship. They're running from something terrible. There was silence on the line then. Bring them to the Sierra Nevada facility, quietly. I'll meet you there. As the constellation changed course for Earth, Olivia looked out at the stars. They seemed colder now, hiding threats she had never imagined. Humanity had thought itself safe in its small corner of the galaxy. That illusion was about to be shattered. What no one yet realized was that humanity possessed something unique, something that might change everything. In their isolation, humans had developed technologies and strategies that the Galactic Alliance had never considered, ways of thinking that the Void Dominion had never encountered. When all seemed lost, humanity would arrive, and the tide of war would begin to turn. The Sierra Nevada facility buzzed with activity. What had once been a quiet research base was now the center of Earth's response to a threat most humans didn't even know existed. Director Gregory Winters paced the length of the conference room, pausing occasionally to look at the star maps projected on the wall. So you're telling me that this Void Dominion has destroyed most of the Galactic Alliance, and now they're heading our way? He asked. Captain Olivia Martinez nodded. According to Admiral Valdez and the other survivors, yes. They'll reach our solar system in about 18 months. Greg ran a hand through his gray hair. And the Council still wants to keep this quiet? We should be warning people, preparing them. The Council is afraid of causing panic, Olivia said. They think we might have time to find a diplomatic solution. Admiral Valdez, who sat at the table with Commander Ellis and the other Alliance survivors, made a sound that might have been a laugh. There is no diplomacy with the Dominion. They don't talk, they don't negotiate. They consume. The door opened, and Dr. Natalie Reeves entered. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes, but excited. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had been studying the Alliance refugees since their arrival. I think I found something, she said, placing a tablet on the table. It's about the Dominion's hive mind. Everyone leaned forward as Natalie brought up scans and data on the main screen. The Void Dominion's strength comes from their connected consciousness, she explained. They think and act as one entity, but that may also be their weakness. She showed them brain scans of a captured Dominion drone that had been found on the Alliance ship. Their neural patterns are synchronized by a specific type of energy field, and here's the interesting part. This field is disrupted by a certain frequency of electromagnetic radiation. Greg frowned. What kind of frequency? That's the amazing thing, Natalie said, her eyes bright. It's a frequency that our military communications have been using for centuries. It's the standard bandwidth for our radar systems, our ships, even our handheld communicators. Silence fell over the room as everyone absorbed this information. Are you saying? Olivia asked slowly. That our technology naturally disrupts their hive mind? Exactly, Natalie nodded. The Alliance never developed along these lines. Their communications technology uses completely different principles. But our systems, developed in isolation from galactic standards, might be the key to fighting the Dominion. Admiral Valdez stood up, his purple eyes wide. This could change everything. If we could weaponize this frequency, create devices that broadcast it at high power, we could break their connection, Commander Ellis finished. Turn their unified fleet into confused individual ships. Greg turned to look out the window at the mountains beyond. We need to take this to the full council. Now. The United Earth Council chamber was rarely filled to capacity, but today every seat was taken. Representatives from all Earth nations and colony worlds listened as Director Winters presented the findings. The threat is real, he concluded, and time is limited. But thanks to Dr. Reeves's discovery, we might have a chance. The council president, Carla Jackson, looked grave. What exactly are you proposing, Director? Admiral Keith Blackwood of the Earth Defense Fleet stood up. Tall and imposing, he commanded respect even from those who disagreed with him. A proactive defense, he said firmly. We retrofit our ships with modified EM pulse weapons based on Dr. Reeves's findings. Then we take the fight to the Dominion before they reach our system. Murmurs filled the chamber. A representative from Mars Colony spoke up. You want us to join a galactic war? We've stayed neutral for 50 years. Neutrality is no longer an option, Admiral Blackwood replied. The Dominion doesn't care about our political stance. They will come for us regardless. We didn't join this fight, but we're about to finish it. The debate raged for hours. Some council members wanted to strengthen Earth's defenses and wait. Others suggested evacuating to unexplored regions of space. A few even proposed trying to communicate with the Dominion, despite Admiral Valdez's warnings. In the end, President Jackson called for a vote. The result was closer than anyone had expected, but the decision was made. Earth would fight. Lieutenant Amanda Fuller didn't expect to become a diplomat. As a tactical officer on the fast scout ship Falcon, her job was to analyze enemy movements and plan attack strategies. But now she found herself standing before the remaining leaders of the Alliance worlds, trying to convince them to trust humanity. We understand your hesitation, she said to the assembled aliens. Earth has kept its distance from Alliance affairs. But this threat concerns us all, and we believe we've found a way to fight back. The Centauri delegate, a tall being with 4 arms and iridescent skin, looked skeptical. Your species has no experience in galactic warfare. What could you possibly offer that our combined forces haven't already tried? Amanda activated the holographic display, showing the test results from Earth's labs. A new weapon, one that targets the Dominion's unique biology and disrupts their hive-mind connection. As the data scrolled across the screen, the mood in the chamber shifted from doubt to cautious hope. Meanwhile, Commander Daniel Peterson worked in the shadows. His team of intelligence operatives had spread throughout what remained of Alliance space, gathering information on Dominion movements, studying their patterns, and establishing a network of informants. They're predictable, he told his agents during a secure communication. They move in patterns. Once we understand those patterns, we can exploit them. Back on Earth, factories that once produced civilian goods now worked around the clock making EM pulse generators and retrofitting ships. Colony worlds sent resources and volunteers. For the first time in decades, humanity united with a single purpose. Fleet Captain Ryan Jenkins stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Endeavour, looking at the assembled fleet. 60 ships, the largest force Earth had ever fielded, prepared to jump to faster than light speed. All ships report ready, sir, his first officer said. Ryan nodded. Send a message to the Alliance Command. Tell them, this is Fleet Captain Ryan Jenkins of the United Earth Defense Force. Help is on the way. As the human fleet disappeared into the darkness of space, they carried with them the hopes of not just Earth, but countless worlds across the galaxy. The tide was about to turn. The Void Dominion had never encountered humans before. Reports from their outer scouts about a new species entering the war were analyzed by the hive mind and dismissed. Their vast consciousness calculated a 99.8% probability of total alliance collapse within 3 months. This new variable would not change the outcome. It was a rare miscalculation. The planet Procyon 4 hung in space like a blue-green jewel. Once a thriving world with billions of inhabitants, now its cities burned as Dominion ships swarmed its orbit. The last Alliance defenders fought bravely but hopelessly, their remaining ships forming a protective ring around the evacuation transports. General Exiled of the Centauri watched the battle from the bridge of his command ship. Tall and forearmed, with iridescent skin that now looked dull with exhaustion, he had fought the Dominion for 20 years. He had seen countless worlds fall. Soon, Procyon 4 would join them. "General," his communications officer called. "We're receiving a transmission from an unknown fleet approaching from Sector 7. Exiled frowned. "Dominion reinforcements?" "No, sir. They're identifying themselves as humans." Before Exiled could respond, a woman's face appeared on the main screen. She wore a dark uniform with silver insignia on the collar. "This is Rear Admiral Sophia West of the Earth Defense Fleet vessel Defiance. We're here to help." Exiled stared, in disbelief. "Admiral West, we appreciate your offer, but you should retreat while you can. The Dominion has over 100 ships in this system. We're evacuating the civilian population." Sophia's expression remained calm. "We understand the situation, General. Our intelligence has been monitoring Dominion movements. We have a plan. Continue your evacuation efforts, but hold your position for 10 more minutes." The transmission ended. Exiled looked at his second-in-command. "Humans. They said they were sending help, but what can they do with so few ships? I count only 12 approaching." 10 minutes later, he had his answer. Lieutenant Jack Morrison led the 1st Fighter Squadron into battle. His small, agile craft darted between the massive Dominion ships, which largely ignored them. The Dominion had learned to focus on capital, ships, not fighters that could do little damage to their hulls. "All wings form up," Jack ordered over the comm. "Prepare to deploy EM pulse weapons on my mark." The human fighters moved into formation, surrounding a particularly large cluster of Dominion vessels. Deep in the heart of each fighter, a new type of weapon waited. Not lasers or missiles, but devices designed to broadcast electromagnetic waves at a very specific frequency. 3, 2, 1, mark. The effect was immediate and stunning. As the EM pulse activated, the perfectly coordinated movements of the Dominion ship suddenly faltered. Some stopped completely. Others began moving erratically, colliding with each other. The hive-mind connection that made them so deadly had been disrupted. On the bridge of the Defiance, Rear Admiral West watched the data stream in. "Target the largest vessels with the main pulse array," she ordered, "and signal the ground teams. They're clear to drop." Major Deborah Keller felt the shudder as her dropship entered Procyon's atmosphere. Around her, 20 Marines checked their equipment, one last time. Each carried a modified pulse rifle that would broadcast the same frequency as the fighters above, but on a smaller scale for ground combat. "Remember your training," she told them. "The Dominion ground troops will be disoriented when their connection to the hive is disrupted. That's when we move in. Our priority is securing the civilian evacuation centers." The dropships landed in the burning capital city. As the doors opened, Deborah saw the enemy for the first time. Dominion ground troops weren't machines, as some had speculated, but biological beings, each one once an individual from a conquered species, now altered and connected to the hive mind. "Activate pulse rifles now," she ordered. The effect on the ground was even more dramatic than in space. The Dominion troops, previously moving with perfect coordination, suddenly stopped. Some fell to their knees. Others wandered aimlessly. Few turned on each other in confusion. "Move in. Secure the evacuation centers." Back in space, the battle had taken an unexpected turn. For the first time in 30 years of war, the Dominion fleet was in disarray. Alliance ships, seeing the opportunity, pressed their attack with renewed vigor. Commander Noah Franklin stood on the bridge of his cruiser Intrepid, watching the battle unfold. His ship housed the largest EM pulse array in the human fleet, but to use it effectively, they needed to get closer to the Dominion command vessel. "The corridor's closing," his tactical officer warned. "If we're going to make a run for it, it has to be now." Noah nodded. "All hands, prepare for high-G maneuvers. Engineering, give me everything the engines have." The Intrepid surged forward, diving into the heart of the enemy formation. Dominion ships, still partially connected to their hive mind, turned to intercept this new threat. The human vessel shuddered as enemy fire struck its shields. "Shields down to 40%, someone reported. "Keep going," Noah ordered. "Get us within range of the command ship." The Intrepid took heavy damage as it pushed deeper into the enemy formation. Hull breaches on multiple decks, fires in engineering, but they kept going. "We're in range," the weapons officer announced. "Activate the main pulse array, full power." The massive EM pulse broadcast from the Intrepid struck the Dominion command vessel like an invisible hammer. The effect cascaded through the remaining enemy ships, breaking their connection completely. What had been a unified fleet became individual vessels with no coordination. On the bridge of his ship, General Exiled watched in amazement as the Dominion forces fell into complete disarray. Alliance ships, working together with the humans, systematically disabled or destroyed the now vulnerable enemy vessels. "The evacuation is complete, General," his aide reported. "All civilian transports have jumped to safety." "And the human vessel that made the run to the command ship?" The aide hesitated. "The Intrepid is heavily damaged, sir. They're venting atmosphere on multiple decks, but they're still operational." Zixel nodded slowly. "Send our best repair teams to assist them." He turned to look at the tactical display, where the remaining Dominion ships were retreating or being captured. "And prepare a full report for Alliance High Command. They need to know what happened here." As the battle ended, humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage. Alliance, species who had dismissed humans as primitive, now looked to Earth with new hope. The tide had begun to turn. In the medical bay of the Defiance, Jack Morrison sat beside the bed of a wounded Marine from Major Keller's team. The soldier would recover, but many others wouldn't be so fortunate. The victory had come at a cost. Was it worth it? The Marine asked weakly. Jack looked out the viewport at the planet they had saved, where millions of people would now live instead of being consumed by the Dominion. "Yes," he said quietly. "It was worth it. And this is just the beginning." News of the victory at Procyon IV spread quickly through Alliance space. For the first time in 3 decades, people dared to hope. The unstoppable enemy had been stopped. The invincible Dominion had been defeated. For the next 6 months, Earth worked tirelessly. Every factory, every shipyard, every research facility focused on one goal: winning the war. Chief Engineer Ethan Mills stood in the massive orbital shipyard above Earth, watching as workers assembled new vessels at an incredible pace. "Another one ready for fitting," his assistant reported. Ethan nodded, checking the schedule on his tablet. "That makes 5 this week. At this rate, we'll have another full battle group ready by next month." Before the war, Earth had built perhaps 10 warships a year. Now, using new mass production techniques that Ethan had pioneered, they were producing that many each week. Alliance representatives visiting the shipyards watched in amazement as hull sections moved along assembly lines, a method no other species had applied to shipbuilding. "We need more ships fast," Ethan explained to a visiting Arcturian admiral, "so we broke down the process and made it more efficient." The admiral shook his head in wonder. "Your people have been isolated for so long, yet you've developed methods we never considered." On the bridge of the flagship Resolution, Admiral Linda Coleman studied the tactical display. The combined Human Alliance fleet had just completed another successful strike against a Dominion supply base. "The enemy is adapting," her intelligence officer warned. "They're starting to shield their command ships against our EM pulses." Linda wasn't surprised. The Dominion's greatest strength was its ability to learn and evolve. "Then we adapt faster," she said. "We don't fight the way they expect us to." Under her leadership, Earth forces developed a new strategic doctrine. Instead of engaging in traditional space battles, they formed small, fast-moving task forces that struck Dominion weak points and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. This asymmetrical warfare confused the hive mind, which was accustomed to predictable, conventional conflicts. They think like one giant organism, Linda explained to her captains. They expect logical, direct approaches, so we give them the opposite. The Alliance had fought separately for decades, each species using their own tactics and strategies. The result had been a slow, steady defeat. Now, with Colonel Samuel Wright leading a new training program, Alliance officers learned Earth military doctrine. Unity gives us strength. Sam told a class of alien officers from 6 different species. We need to fight as one force, not 20 separate armies. In the beginning, there was resistance. Many species had proud military traditions dating back thousands of years. They didn't want to adopt human methods. But as victories mounted, resistance faded. In his laboratory on Earth, Dr. Aaron Phillips worked with a team of scientists from both human and Alliance worlds. They had moved beyond the basic EM pulse technology to something more sophisticated. The problem with the current pulses is range, Aaron explained to a visiting admiral. They only disrupt the hive mind within a limited area. We need something that can affect entire systems. His team had developed what they called an EM pulse beacon. When deployed, it could disrupt Dominion communications across huge distances, preventing reinforcements from coordinating their movements. The first prototypes are ready for field testing, Aaron said. Now we need a way to place them deep in enemy territory. That job fell to Lieutenant Alicia Morgan and the crew of the Nightshade. Their ship was unlike any other in the human fleet, painted matte black with special hull materials that absorbed rather than reflected sensor scans. It was nearly invisible to enemy detection systems. Final check complete, Alicia announced from the captain's chair. Stealth systems at maximum. We're ready to jump. The Nightshade's mission was simple but incredibly dangerous. Slip behind enemy lines, plant the new EM pulse beacons, and get out without being detected. If they succeeded, they would disrupt Dominion operations across multiple sectors. If they failed, they would likely never return. The first jump took them to the edge of Dominion space. The second placed them deep in enemy territory. Alicia held her breath as they passed within sensor range of a Dominion patrol. The stealth systems worked. The enemy ships continued on their course without changing speed or direction. Over the next week, the Nightshade planted beacons at key locations throughout Dominion space. Each one was carefully hidden and programmed to activate simultaneously. Last beacon placed, Alicia's first officer reported. Ready to head home? Alicia nodded, feeling the weight of the past week lift from her shoulders. Definitely. Let's get out of here before our luck runs out. The Nightshade made it safely back to Alliance space. 3 days later, the beacons activated. Across 20 star systems, the Dominion hive mind connection suddenly fragmented. It was like cutting the strings of a puppet. Ships lost coordination. Bases could not communicate with each other, and carefully planned operations fell apart. Alliance and human forces, prepared for this moment, launched simultaneous attacks on key Dominion strongholds. The once mighty enemy found itself fighting multiple battles without the ability to coordinate its responses. On the occupied world of Tau Ceti II, resistance had been growing for months. Michelle Simmons, a civilian engineer stranded there when the planet fell, had organized the survivors into an effective guerrilla force. They sabotaged Dominion equipment, stole supplies, and gathered intelligence on enemy movements. When Captain Jason Bryant's Marines landed on the outskirts of the main city, Michelle was waiting for them with detailed maps and information. Half the work is already done, she told the surprised captain. The Northern District is under our control and we've disabled their main power grid. Jason studied the woman with newfound respect. We thought we were coming to liberate a conquered world. Looks like you started without us. Michelle smiled grimly. We never stopped fighting. We just needed a little help to finish the job. The liberation of Tau Ceti II became a model for operations on other occupied worlds. Human forces working together with local resistance fighters freed planet after planet. The Dominion, for the first time in its existence, began to retreat. In the vast consciousness of the Void Dominion's hive mind, a new sensation emerged. something the collective had never experienced before: fear. The final battle took shape around the Deneb system. Deep inside this remote region of space orbited a massive structure called the Nexus, the heart of the Void Dominion. Built around a dying star, it housed the central consciousness that controlled the vast hive mind. For 3 years, Alliance intelligence had searched for this location. Now they had found it. The combined fleets of humanity and the Alliance gathered at the edge of the system. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, over 1,000 ships from 30 different species, all united, under one command. Admiral Caroline Reed stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Resolution, looking at the holographic display of the assembled forces. 3 years ago, she had been a junior officer. Now she commanded this historic operation. "The Dominion knows we're coming," her intelligence officer reported. "They've called back every available ship to defend the Nexus." Caroline nodded. She had expected nothing less. "Send the signal to all ships. Operation Turning Tide is now active." Throughout the fleet, captains received their final orders. Years of fighting together had created a unity that once seemed impossible. Humans and aliens now worked side by side, each bringing their unique strengths to the battle. Lieutenant Victor Ramirez checked his equipment one last time. His mission was perhaps the most critical and dangerous of the entire operation. While the main fleet engaged the Dominion forces, a small team would infiltrate the Nexus itself and deploy an advanced EM pulse device at its core. "Everyone, ready?" he asked, looking around at his team. Besides himself, there were 5 others, each from a different Alliance species: a Centauri engineer, an Arcturian navigator, a Rigelian explosives expert, a Procyon medic, and a Tau Ceti communications specialist. Such cooperation would have been unimaginable before humanity's arrival. "Ready as we'll ever be," said Kellis, the Centauri engineer. "Let's end this war." Their small, heavily modified stealth ship detached from the Resolution and moved toward the Nexus, using the chaos of battle as cover. The main fleet divided into attack groups, each with a specific target. The battle plan, developed by Admiral Reed and her staff, was unlike anything the Dominion had faced before. Instead of a direct assault, the Allied forces used complex maneuvers that seemed chaotic, but were actually precisely coordinated. "They're trying to predict our movements," Caroline said, watching the enemy formations adjust. "But we're not following any pattern they've seen before." The Dominion forces were still formidable. Despite all the victories of the past 3 years, the enemy had adapted, developing partial shields against EM pulse weapons and new tactics of their own. Ships on both sides took heavy damage as energy weapons and missiles filled space with deadly light. Commander Patricia Doyle's cruiser Dauntless fought on the front lines, protecting a group of Alliance medical ships that were picking up survivors from damaged vessels. When a Dominion heavy destroyer broke through the defensive line and headed straight for the vulnerable medical ships, Patricia made a split-second decision. "Intercept course," she ordered. "Full power to forward shields." The Dauntless moved to place itself between the enemy and the medical ships. The Dominion destroyer fired its main weapons, striking the human vessel with devastating force. Alarms blared as systems failed across the ship. "Shields failing," her tactical officer reported. "Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Patricia held tight to her chair as the ship shuddered around her. "Hold position. The medical ships need time to escape." The Dauntless took hit after hit, buying precious minutes for the medical ships to reach safety. By the time they were clear, the human cruiser was critically damaged, its engines dead, life support failing. "Abandon ship," Patricia ordered. "All hands to escape pods." As her crew evacuated, Patricia stayed on the bridge, using the Dauntless's remaining weapons to keep the enemy's attention fixed on her ship rather than the fleeing medical vessels. Her sacrifice allowed thousands of wounded to escape destruction. Inside the Nexus, Victor Ramirez and his team fought their way through automated defense systems and Dominion guards. The structure was vast and maze-like, its walls made of a strange, shifting material that seemed almost alive. "The central chamber should be just ahead," the Arcturian navigator said, checking a holographic map they had compiled from intelligence reports. The team had started with 6, now only 3 remained. The Rigelian and the Tau Ceti had fallen during a firefight 2 levels back. The Procyon medic had been lost when a section of corridor collapsed. As they approached the central chamber, Dominion resistance increased. Victor was hit in the shoulder by enemy fire, the wound deep and painful. Kellis, the Centauri engineer, took a more serious hit to the chest. "I can't go on," Kellis said, leaning against a wall, blue blood seeping between his 4 hands. "You, 2, go ahead. I'll hold them off here." Victor wanted to argue, but there was no time. He and the Arcturian continued forward while Kellis used the last of his strength to cover their retreat. The central chamber was a vast spherical space. At its center floated a pulsing crystalline object the size of a small ship. The physical manifestation of the Dominion's central consciousness, that's it, Victor said. "That's what we came for." They moved forward, the Arcturian carrying the specialized EM pulse device they had brought. But as they approached, a final wave of Dominion guards attacked. The Arcturian fell, mortally wounded, but managed to push the device into Victor's hands. "Finish it," he gasped. Wounded and alone, Flight Officer Kyle Bennett, the last survivor of Ramirez's team, limped to the center of the chamber. The Dominion guards were closing in. The pulse device was damaged, its automated timer destroyed. There was only one way to activate it now. Kyle placed the device directly against the crystalline consciousness and manually activated the sequence. The device would detonate in 30 seconds, not enough time to escape. "For Earth," he whispered. "For all of us." The resulting pulse destroyed the Dominion's central consciousness in a cascade of energy. Throughout the galaxy, assimilated beings were suddenly freed as the hive mind collapsed. The war that had seemed unwinnable was over. In the aftermath, humanity took its place as a full member of a reformed galactic alliance. The species that had once kept to themselves had saved the galaxy. At the victory celebration on Earth, Admiral Soren Valdez, whose desperate escape had been the prologue to humanity's involvement, raised a toast. To the species who arrived when all seemed lost and turned the tide for us all. A new era of galactic cooperation had begun, with humanity at its center. The isolation that had once been Earth's policy had, ironically, developed the unique perspective and technology that saved the galaxy. Together, the united species looked to the future with hope, ready to rebuild what had been lost and create something greater than had existed before. Seraphine stood in the great council chamber and felt her heart break into pieces. Around her, the lights of 1,000 species filled the enormous room. Above them all sat the High Arbiter, a being so old that no one remembered what his original form looked like anymore. He had lived inside his mechanical suit for 3,000 years. The Arbiter's voice echoed through the chamber. "The Council has made its decision. The Valeth will leave their homeworld within 30 cycles. This is final." Seraphine's skin flickered with pale blue light. Blue meant sadness for her people. All around the Valeth delegation, soft blue glows appeared on their arms, their faces, their necks. They wore their grief like a second skin because they could not hide it. The Valeth had evolved to show their emotions through light. It made them honest. It also made them vulnerable. "But it is our home," Seraphine said. Her voice shook. "Our ancestors have lived there for 50,000 years. The singing forests know our names. The crystal cities hold our memories. Please, there must be another way." A council member from the Krell species laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. "Your world sits on the largest deposit of Iridium-7 in this sector. We need it for our ships, our stations, our expansion. You have 30 cycles to evacuate. Be grateful we are giving you that much time. Another voice spoke up. Perhaps they could stay on a small portion of the planet? A reservation? The Arbiter's mechanical hand waved dismissively. The mining operations will make the entire planet uninhabitable. They must leave. This meeting is over, Serathine wanted to scream. She wanted to fight. But the Valeth had never raised weapons against anyone. They were empaths. They felt the pain of others as if it were their own. Violence made them physically ill. So she bowed her head and led her people out of the chamber. Behind them, she heard the council members already discussing how to divide the resources of her world. The next 30 cycles passed like a nightmare. The Valeth packed everything they could carry. They said goodbye to the forests that hummed in harmony with their thoughts. They touched the crystal spires one last time, watching them sing out songs of farewell. Children cried, asking why they had to leave when they had done nothing wrong. The elders simply dimmed their light and stayed silent. Serathine organized the evacuation. 50,000 Valeth boarded 6 old transport ships. The council had sold them the ships at triple the normal price. They were old vessels, barely spaceworthy with failing systems and outdated life support, but it was all the Valeth could afford. Young Kiravan, a child of only 8 cycles, tugged on Serathine's sleeve as they boarded the last ship. "Will we find a new home?" she asked. Her light pulsed with soft orange, the color of worry. Serathine knelt down and touched the child's face. She forced her own light to glow gentle green, the color of hope, even though she felt nothing but despair. "Yes, little one. We will find a place where we can be safe." It was a lie. Serathine knew the truth. No council species would take them in. The Valeth had defied the council's orders. They had protested, filed legal challenges, begged for mercy. Now they were marked as troublemakers. No one would offer them sanctuary. The ships launched on the final day. Serathine stood at a viewing port and watched her homeworld shrink behind them. Already she could see the massive mining vessels moving into orbit. Within a year, the singing forest would be ash. The crystal cities would be ground into dust. Her world would be a barren rock. All around her, the Valeth dimmed their lights. Throughout the ship, 50,000 beings went dark with grief. The corridors that should have glowed with the natural light of her people became shadowy and cold. They traveled into the outer reaches, the edge of known space where no civilized species ventured. Serathine sent messages to every system they passed. "We are refugees seeking sanctuary. We will work. We will contribute. We ask only for a place to live in peace." No one answered. After 6 months, the ships began to fail. Engineer Talron came to Serathine with a report she did not want to hear. 3 ships are losing life support. The food synthesizers on 2 vessels are completely broken. We are running out of supplies. Dr. Mirasol brought worse news. The children are fading. They need proper nutrition, proper light, proper care. Without it, they will stop glowing entirely. You know what that means, Serathine knew. A Valeth who lost their light lost themselves. They faded into darkness and never woke up. She had seen it happen to the very old and very sick. She could not let it happen to the children. She made the decision that would change everything. "We must land on the nearest habitable world." "We have no choice," Talron checked his instruments. "There is one planet within range. It is listed in our database as Kepler 442b. The notation says it is in human-designated space." "What are humans?" Serathine asked. Talron shrugged. "A young species from a world called Earth. They have only been traveling in space for a few hundred years. They are not part of the Council." Serathine felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps these humans would help where the Council had abandoned them. Or perhaps they would be hostile, territorial and violent like so many spacefaring species. She had no choice but to find out. "Set course for Kepler 442b, she ordered. "May the light guide us." The ships turned toward their last hope. Behind them, one vessel suddenly went dark. Its engines had failed completely. Serathine watched in horror as 4,000 of her people drifted away into the black void of space. They sent out distress signals. They called for help. No one came. The remaining Valeth crowded into the other ships, pressing together in corridors and cargo bays. They dimmed their lights to save energy. They rationed food to make it last. And they flew toward an unknown world, praying that whoever lived there would have mercy. Serathine stood on the bridge and whispered to herself, "Please let there be kindness there. Please let there be hope." The planet grew larger in the viewport. Soon they would know if they would find sanctuary or if they would die alone in the dark. The ships fell from the sky like dying stars. Sarathine gripped the arms of her chair as the vessel shook and screamed around her. The engines were failing. They had enough power for one landing, but it would not be gentle. Brace for impact, Talron shouted from the pilot station. The ship hit the ground hard. Metal shrieked. Systems exploded. The lights went out. Then finally silence. Sarathine pulled herself up. Her body hurt in a dozen places, but she was alive. Around her, other Vaylith were stirring, their lights flickering weakly in the darkness. She could see that some were not moving at all. "Get the doors open," she commanded. "We need to see where we are." The cargo bay doors hissed and groaned. Finally, they opened. Fresh air rushed in, carrying strange smells. Sarathine stepped out onto solid ground for the first time in months and nearly fell. Her legs had forgotten how to walk on a planet. She looked around. They had crashed in the middle of a vast field. The crops they had landed on were crushed and burning. In the distance, she could see buildings. Lights. This world was inhabited. "Get everyone out," she said. "Quickly. We do not know if we are welcome here." The Vaylith stumbled from the ships. They were a pitiful sight. Thin, weak, their lights barely glowing. Children clung to their parents. The elderly could barely walk. Many were crying, their tears leaving glowing trails down their faces. That was when Sarathine heard the engines. She turned and saw vehicles approaching fast. They were rough, practical machines, not like the sleek transports of council species. Armed figures stood on them, weapons pointed forward. "Behind me," Sarathine said to her people. "All of you, behind me." She pushed Kiravan and the other children toward the back of the group. Then she walked forward with her hands raised. Her light pulsed pale blue, showing her fear and sadness. She could not hide it. The Vaylith were not made for deception. The vehicles stopped 20 meters away. Humans climbed out. Sarathine studied them with surprise. They looked so fragile. No armor plating on their skin. No natural weapons. Just soft flesh and determined eyes. But the weapons they carried were not fragile at all. A woman stepped forward. She wore a military uniform with many marks on it. Her hair was pulled back tight and her eyes were hard. She pointed her weapon at Sarathine. "Identify yourself," the woman said. "What are you doing on our world?" Sarathine's translation device struggled with the language, but it worked well enough. "We are Vaylith. We are refugees. We mean no harm. Please, we need help." The human woman did not lower her weapon. "You crashed into our farmland. You destroyed our crops. Give me one reason not to consider this an invasion." Sarathine felt despair wash over her. Even here, at the end of everything, they would find no mercy. Her light dimmed almost to nothing. Behind her, she heard Kiravan crying. Then another human spoke. He was older, wearing different clothing. He stepped closer, looking at the Vaylith with wide eyes. "Commander Vasquez, look at them. Really look at them. They are starving. Half of them can barely stand. This is not an invasion." The Commander Vasquez narrowed her eyes. "Then what is it, Dr. Park?" It is exactly what she said. They are refugees. At that moment, Kiravan collapsed. The child simply fell, her light going out completely. Her mother screamed and ran to her. Dr. Park moved without thinking, running forward to help. "Wait," Vasquez shouted, but he ignored her. Dr. Park knelt beside the fallen child and pulled out a medical scanner. He studied the readings and looked up at Vasquez with stricken eyes. "She is dying. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, system shutdown. Commander, this child is dying right now." Vasquez stared at Kiravan. The girl was so small, so fragile. Her light was completely gone. The commander saw her own daughter's face in that child. She saw every child she had ever protected, ever fought for. She lowered her weapon. "Get medical teams here now," she ordered into her communicator. "Bring food, water, everything we have. Move." Within minutes, more humans arrived. They brought supplies, blankets, medical equipment. They moved through the crowd of Vaylith, offering help without hesitation. Sarathine watched in amazement as humans wrapped blankets around shivering children and pressed food packets into weak hands. One human, a large man with rough hands and an angry face, pushed through the crowd. "Those are my fields you destroyed," he said to Sarathine. 3 months of work gone. Sarathine bowed her head. "I am sorry. We had nowhere else to go." The man stared at her. Then he looked at Kiravan, still unconscious in her mother's arms. He saw the terror on the mother's face. He remembered holding his own daughter like that once, years ago, when sickness had nearly taken her. His anger drained away. "Keep your apologies," he said quietly. "Just take care of your kids." He walked away and started organizing other farmers to bring more supplies. That night, the Valeth sat in a temporary camp the humans had set up. They had food for the first time in weeks. Real food, not recycled paste from failing machines. They had warm places to sleep. They had medical care. Dr. Park worked on Kiravan for 3 hours. Finally, the child's light flickered back to life. It was weak, barely a glow, but it was there. Her mother wept glowing tears of relief. Seraphine found Commander Vasquez standing at the edge of the camp. "Why?" she asked. "Why are you helping us?" Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. "Because you needed help," she finally said. "Because those are children and they are hungry. It is not complicated. The Galactic Council would not help us. They exiled us. They took our world." Vasquez turned to look at her. "We are not the Galactic Council. We are farmers and workers and people who know what it is like to struggle. We see a group of refugees who need help. We give help. That is how we do things out here on the frontier." She paused, then added, "I have contacted Earth Command. They will send representatives. But I can tell you right now, no one here is going to turn you away." Seraphine's light pulsed soft gold for the first time in a year. Gold was the color of joy and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have given us more than help. You have given us hope." That night, the Valeth children glowed softly as they slept, safe and fed. The adults kept watch, but for the first time in months they were not watching for danger. They were watching the humans moving through the camp, checking on people, bringing supplies, asking if anyone needed anything. Seraphine sat beside Kiravan and held the sleeping child's hand. "We found them, little one," she whispered. "We found the humans. Maybe we found more than just a place to land. Maybe we found a home. In the morning, everything would change again. But tonight there was food and safety and kindness. For refugees who had known only loss and exile, that was everything." 3 weeks passed on the world the humans called New Saskatchewan. The Valeth began to heal. Their lights grew stronger each day. The children laughed again, their glows shifting through happy colors as they played. It was something Seraphine had feared she would never see again. The humans were building permanent shelters for them. Not camps or holding areas, but actual homes. Marcus Cole, the farmer whose fields they had destroyed, was directing the construction himself. He worked alongside Valeth adults who were strong enough to help. "You are giving us so much," Seraphine said to him one afternoon. "We have nothing to repay you with." Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead and shrugged. "You can work the fields when you are well. These crops do not grow themselves. Besides, my daughter likes playing with your kids. That is payment enough." It was true. Marcus's daughter, Emma, had become friends with Kiravan despite speaking different languages. They communicated with gestures and laughter. Seraphine watched them chase each other through the settlement, and her heart felt lighter than it had in years. But the Valeth had gifts to offer that the humans had not expected. One morning, Seraphine walked through the human fields with Marcus and several other farmers. She touched the soil and closed her eyes. "The plants here are stressed," she said. "They need more water in this section, but less in that area. The soil composition is wrong here. You need to add these minerals." Marcus stared at her. "How can you possibly know that?" "We are empaths," Seraphine explained. "We feel the emotions of living things. Plants have feelings too, in their own way. They tell us what they need." The humans tested her suggestions. Within days, the crop yields improved dramatically. The plants grew faster and healthier. Marcus stood in his field looking at vegetables that were twice the normal size and laughed with disbelief. "You people are going to revolutionize our farming," he said. "Do you know what this means? We could feed twice as many people with the same land." Dr. Park was fascinated by Valeth biology. He spent hours talking with Dr. Mirazol, learning about their species. The bioluminescence was not just for show, he discovered. It was part of their immune system, their communication, their entire way of life. When a Valeth went dark, it was because their body was shutting down. "Your people almost died," he told Seraphine. "Another week without proper care and we would have lost dozens of you. Maybe more." Seraphine's light flickered blue with remembered pain. "We know. We felt ourselves fading. That is why we took the risk of landing here. We had no other choice." Commander Vasquez called Seraphine to her office one day. Her face was serious. "We have received word from Earth Command. There is a situation developing. Seraphine felt her light pulse with orange worry. What kind of situation? The Galactic Council has discovered where you are. They are sending ships to retrieve you. Retrieve us? Seraphine's voice shook. We are not property. We are people. I know that. You know that. But the Council sees it differently. They say you fled with Council-registered ships. They claim you are thieves. They want you returned to face justice. Seraphine sat down heavily. If they take us back, we will be imprisoned. Or worse, they will send us to some barren moon to die slowly. There is no justice for us in the Council. Vasquez leaned forward. That is not going to happen. We have made our decision. You are under human protection now. No one is taking you anywhere. But you are so few, Seraphine protested. The humans are not part of the Council. You have no authority in galactic law. They will crush you if you stand in their way. Maybe, Vasquez said with a tight smile. But they will have to try first. Earth is sending Admiral Okoye with a fleet. They will be here in 4 days. Until then, we hold the line. The news spread through the human settlement quickly. Some were afraid. Some were angry. Most were determined. That evening, the colonists held a meeting in the central hall. Seraphine was invited to attend. Marcus stood up first. I want to say something. These Valeth folks crashed in my field, destroyed 3 months of work. I was angry. I wanted them gone. He paused and looked at Kiravan, who sat with Emma. But then I saw that little girl collapse. I saw her mother's face. I remembered what it feels like to be afraid for your child. And I realized that anger does not matter. Fear does not matter. What matters is doing what is right. He looked around at the other colonists. These people need our help. I say we give it to them no matter what comes. Another farmer stood. The Council is powerful. If we defy them, we could lose everything. We came out here to the frontier to build something better, a woman said. If we turn away people who need help just because we are afraid, what are we building? What kind of people are we? The debate went on for hours. Finally, they voted. It was not even close. The colonists voted to protect the Valeth, even if it meant conflict with the Council. Seraphine stood with tears glowing on her cheeks. Why? She asked them all. You barely know us. Why would you risk so much? An old colonist with gray hair answered. Because a long time ago my ancestors were refugees too. They fled war and hunger and found a place that took them in. I am only here because someone, somewhere decided that helping strangers was the right thing to do. Now it is our turn. 4 days later, the Council ships arrived. 6 massive vessels dropped out of hyperspace and moved into orbit. They were warships designed to intimidate and destroy. The small human defense satellites looked like toys next to them. But between the Council ships and the planet, a new fleet appeared. 12 human warships materialized, their weapons powered and ready. They were not as large as the Council vessels, but they were fierce and determined. Admiral David Okoye's face appeared on every screen in the settlement. He was a tall man with dark skin and eyes that had seen too much war, but his voice was steady and strong. This is Admiral Okoye of the Earth Defense Fleet. I am here to inform the Galactic Council that the Valeth refugees are under human protection. They will not be removed. They will not be harmed. This is not negotiable, a Council representative responded. His face appeared on the screens filled with arrogance. You are a young species barely advanced enough to leave your own system. You dare to defy the Council? We will destroy your ships and take what is ours. They are not yours, Okoye said quietly. They are people. And if you want them, you will have to go through us first. The standoff began. For 2 days, the fleets faced each other in tense silence. Weapons were charged. Shields were raised. One mistake, one nervous finger on a trigger, and war would begin. In the settlement below, humans and Valeth waited together. They had become more than refugees and hosts. They had become neighbors, friends, and allies. The Council ships hung in the sky like a threat that would not go away. On the 3rd day of the standoff, a shuttle descended from the largest vessel. It carried Ambassador T'Char, a being who had served the Council for 500 years. He was ancient, powerful, and completely certain of his authority. Commander Vasquez met him at the landing pad with armed guards. Seraphine stood beside her, though every instinct told her to run and hide. Her light pulsed with deep purple, the color of fear mixed with determination. T'Char looked at them both with disdain. This defiance is pointless. The Valeth are exiles. They have no rights under galactic law. You harbor criminals. They are refugees who did nothing wrong except refuse to abandon their home, Vasquez said. That is not a crime. It is when the council decrees it, T'Char replied. You are a primitive species. You do not understand how galactic civilization works. Order must be maintained. Decisions must be enforced. If every species could simply refuse our decrees, there would be chaos. Sarathin spoke, her voice shaking but clear. We begged for mercy. We offered compromises. We asked only to keep a small part of our world. You gave us nothing but exile and suffering. T'Char turned cold eyes on her. Your world sits on resources the galaxy needs. Your sentiment does not change economics. Now you will come with me or we will take you by force, no. The word came from behind them. Kiravan walked forward, her young face set with determination. Emma walked beside her, holding her hand. You will not take her, Emma said. She is my friend. T'Char laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Children. How touching. Stand aside, human child, or be moved aside. He reached for Kiravan. The girl's light flashed red with terror. She cried out and stumbled backward. That was when Marcus Cole's fist connected with T'Char's face. The ambassador fell, more from shock than injury. He touched his face, feeling the blood. You dare strike a council ambassador? I dare protect a child, Marcus said. You want to take her? You go through me first. More colonists stepped forward, forming a wall between T'Char and the Velith. They were farmers and engineers and teachers. They had no military training, but they stood firm. T'Char rose to his feet, his eyes filled with cold rage. You have chosen war, very well. When my ships reduce this settlement to ash, remember that you brought this on yourselves. He returned to his shuttle. Within an hour, the council ships began powering weapons. The human fleet moved to intercept. Admiral Okoye broadcast one final message. People of Earth, people of the galaxy, hear me now. We are told we must hand over these refugees. We are told that galactic law demands it. We are told that we are too small, too young, too insignificant to matter. His voice grew stronger. But we have looked into the eyes of the Velith. We have seen their children laugh and play. We have seen their gratitude for simple kindness. We have learned that they were exiled for the crime of loving their home too much. And we say no. Not here, not now, not ever. Humanity may be young. We may be small. But we remember what it is like to be powerless. We remember oppression and exile and suffering. Our history is filled with people who stood up when standing was dangerous, who protected the weak when protection meant sacrifice, who said no when everyone else said yes. So here is our answer to the council. The Velith are under our protection. Not one more tear falls because of you. Not one more child is taken from their home. Not one more innocent is exiled into darkness. This is our promise, and humanity keeps its promises. If you want them, you come through us first. Silence filled the void of space. Then slowly the council ships began to stand down. Their weapons powered down, their shields lowered. T'Char's voice came over the communications channel, tight with barely controlled fury. The council will not forget this insult. You have made an enemy today. We have made a choice today, Okoye replied, and we would make it again. The council fleet withdrew. They left the system, their threat empty, their authority challenged for the first time in centuries. On New Saskatchewan, the colonists cheered. The Velith glowed brilliant gold, a light so bright it could be seen from space. Sarathin found Okoye after he landed. She knelt before him, her entire body shining with gratitude and joy. You risked everything for us. Your fleet, your world, your future. Why? Okoye helped her stand. Because someone has to. Because if we do not stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, what are we? Just another empire taking what we want and calling it civilization? He looked out at the settlement where human and Velith children played together. My grandmother was a refugee once. She fled war in her homeland with nothing but the clothes on her back. A stranger took her in, gave her food and shelter, asked for nothing in return. That stranger's kindness saved her life. She used to tell me, David, never forget that every person you meet is carrying something heavy. And sometimes the greatest thing you can do is help them carry it for a while. The Velith were carrying something too heavy, so we helped. It is that simple. That night the humans held a celebration. They played music and shared food. The Velith sang in harmonies that made the air shimmer. Their voices could touch emotions directly, and they poured all their gratitude and joy into the song. Kiravan sat between Emma and Sarah Chen, a human pilot who had taken a special interest in the young Velith. Will the bad people come back? Kiravan asked. Sarah put an arm around her shoulders. Maybe, but if they do, we will be here. We protect our friends. That is what family does. Are we family? Kiravan's light pulsed with hopeful green. Sarah smiled. Yeah, kid. I think we are. Marcus Cole stood with Sarah Thin, watching the celebration. Your people have a gift with plants. My crops have never grown better. If you are willing to stay, we could use your help. Permanent, like... As partners, not guests. Sarathin's light shimmered through every color of joy. We would be honored. We have wandered for so long. It would be good to have a home again. Then welcome home, Marcus said simply. In orbit above them, Admiral Okoye stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the lights of the celebration below. His first officer approached. Sir, do you think the council will retaliate? Okoye considered the question. Maybe, maybe not. But today we showed the galaxy something important. We showed them that you do not have to be big to be brave. You do not have to be strong to do what is right. And most importantly, we showed them that humanity will not look away when people are suffering. He smiled slightly. The Council has been the only power in this galaxy for a long time. They forgot what it is like to be challenged. We just reminded them, and I think other species were watching. Other small species who have been pushed around and ignored. They saw what happened here today. That might matter more than any fleet. Below, the celebration continued into the night. For the first time in a year, the Vilith slept without fear. They had found more than sanctuary. They had found people who kept their promises. They had found humanity. 5 years passed like a dream after a nightmare. New Saskatchewan became something unique in the galaxy. A world where two species lived not just together, but as one community. The Vilith no longer lived in a separate settlement. They had homes throughout the colony, neighbors to humans who had once been strangers. Kiravan stood in the cockpit of a small spacecraft, her hands steady on the controls. She was 13 now, tall for her age, her bioluminescence strong and healthy. Beside her, Sarah Chen watched with a mix of pride and nervousness. Remember, Sarah said, smooth on the throttle. This ship has both human and Vilith technology. It responds to both manual controls and emotional input. You need to stay calm. I am calm, Kiravan said. Her light was steady green, the color of focus and confidence. I have been practicing for 2 years. I can do this, then show me, Sarah said with a smile. Take her up. The ship lifted smoothly into the sky. Kiravan's touch was gentle but sure. She flew over the colony, banking and turning with natural grace. Below, fields stretched in neat rows, glowing slightly in the afternoon sun. The crops grown here fed 3 human colonies now, all thanks to Vilith agricultural knowledge combined with human engineering. Sarah watched the young pilot with pride. You are better than I was at your age, and that is saying something because I was pretty good. Kiravan laughed, her light pulsing with happy yellow. You taught me everything. Of course I am good. They landed smoothly at the spaceport. As they climbed out, Sarah Thin approached. She was older now. Her light shot through with threads of silver, but she stood tall and proud, wearing the sash of a cultural ambassador. She spent her time now teaching humans about Vilith customs and helping new refugees who arrived at human worlds, because there were other refugees now. News had spread across the galaxy about what happened at New Saskatchewan. Other small species, other exiles, other people with nowhere to go began to seek out human space. They came looking for the species that had said not one more tear. Earth had responded by creating the Sanctuary Fleet. It was not a military force, though it could defend itself. It was a rescue force, a protection force, a promise made real. 15 different species now lived under human protection across a dozen worlds. The Council has requested another meeting, Sarathin told Sarah and Kiravan. This time they want to talk, not threaten. Sarah raised an eyebrow. What changed their mind? We did, Sarathin said simply. Humans and Vilith together. We showed them a different way, and now they are losing member species. Smaller worlds are asking why the Council does not protect refugees when humans do. Why the Council only takes and never gives. The galaxy is changing. They walked together through the colony. Human children and Vilith children played in the streets. A Vilith elder taught a human class about empathic farming techniques. A human engineer worked with a Vilith scientist on improving their biotech integration. It was seamless, natural, as if it had always been this way. Emma found them near the central square. She was 18 now, studying xenobiology like Dr. Park. She and Kiravan had grown up together, closer than sisters. Did you hear? They are unveiling the monument today. They walked to the town center where a crowd had gathered. The monument stood covered by a large cloth. Marcus Cole, now the colony's elected leader, stood beside Admiral Okoye, who had come personally for the dedication. Marcus spoke first, his voice carrying across the square. 5 years ago, refugees fell from the sky and crashed in my field. I was angry. I wanted them gone. Then I saw a child dying and remembered what being human means. It means helping when help is needed. It means standing up when others are pushed down. It means keeping promises even when keeping them is hard. He pulled the cloth away. The monument was beautiful, made of Valeth crystal and human steel intertwined. The crystal glowed softly, responding to the emotions of everyone nearby. Engraved on the base were the words, "Not one more tear, humanity's promise, year 1 of sanctuary." Admiral Okoye spoke next. He was older now too, but his eyes were still sharp. 5 years ago, we made a choice. We chose compassion over convenience. We chose justice over profit. We chose to stand with the powerless against the powerful. That choice defined us. He looked around at the mixed crowd of species. Now the Galactic Council wants to talk. They want Earth to join them, to have a seat at their table. We will listen, but we will only join if we can bring change with us. Real change. Protection for refugees. Rights for smaller species. An end to exile and forced relocation. The Council thought we were too young to matter. Too small to challenge them. They were wrong. Not because we are strong, but because we were willing to stand up when others would not. And that changed everything. The crowd cheered. Seraphine stepped forward and spoke, her voice amplified for all to hear. My people were dying. We were alone in the dark, abandoned by the galaxy. Then we found humanity. Not perfect beings, not saviors from myth, but people who cared when caring mattered most. Her light pulsed through every color, gold for joy, green for hope, blue for remembered sorrow, and finally settling on white, the color of peace and gratitude. Humans taught us that strength is not about power. It is about courage. The courage to help when helping is dangerous. The courage to stand when standing means sacrifice. The courage to keep promises when promises are all you have. She touched the monument with one glowing hand. This monument says not one more tear. That is humanity's promise. It was given to us when we needed it most. Now we carry that promise forward. We help humans protect others who need protection. We stand together because that is what family does. Kiravan and Emma stood side by side watching. Do you remember landing here? Emma asked. I remember being afraid, Kiravan said quietly. I remember my light going out. I remember thinking I would die. Then I woke up and your father was there with food and blankets. You were holding my hand. I remember thinking that maybe the universe was not as cruel as I thought. I remember my dad coming home that night, Emma said. He sat me down and told me about these aliens who had crashed in his field. He said he had been angry, but then he saw you collapse and he could not be angry anymore. He said you reminded him of me. He said that was when he knew what he had to do. She smiled. Dad says that day changed him. He says he stopped thinking about what he had lost and started thinking about what he could give. That is what the Valeth gave us too, you know. You reminded us why we came out here to the frontier. Not to take, but to build something better. That evening, Seraphine sat with Dr. Park on a hillside overlooking the colony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Below, lights were coming on in thousands of windows, human and Valeth living side by side. Do you think it will last? Seraphine asked. This peace, this cooperation? Dr. Park considered the question. I think it will have challenges. Humans and Valeth are not perfect. We will make mistakes. We will have disagreements. But I think what we have built here is stronger than disagreement. We have built trust, and that is rare in the galaxy. He pointed to where Kiravan and Emma were walking together through the streets. Look at them. They grew up together. To them, this is normal. Human and Valeth living together, working together, being family together. They are the future, and their future is better than anything the Council ever built. Seraphine's light pulsed with soft white peace. We were exiled and alone. We thought we had lost everything. Then we found humanity, and in humanity we found more than sanctuary. We found hope that the galaxy could be better. We found proof that compassion is not weakness but the greatest strength of all. She stood and looked at the monument in the distance, glowing in the twilight. Not one more tear. That is what they promised us. And in 5 years, they have kept that promise. Not just for us, but for 15 other species. Thousands of refugees who now have homes, families, futures. The Council thinks they rule the galaxy, Dr. Park said. But they rule through fear and power. Humans are showing the galaxy something different. We are showing them that you can rule through compassion and cooperation, and more species are listening every day. As night fell, the colony glowed with light, human electrical light and Valith bioluminescence mixing together, creating something beautiful and new. Ships passed overhead, human and Valith crews working together, flying out to find more refugees, to keep more promises, to spread the message that no one had to be alone anymore. In the town square, children played around the monument. They did not see different species. They saw friends, neighbors, family. They had grown up in a world where protecting others was normal, where keeping promises mattered, where compassion was strength. They were the future, and the future was bright.